Many people find it very difficult to basically quiet their mind. Their minds are constantly being overrun by the ego, that false self of reality, or that false identity. The ego can be a very powerful force. Matter of fact, the ego is the primary reason why a lot of us really fail to live up to our full potentials, to really manifest or create our lives by design. See, the ego has its own agenda. Number one is your ego is never in reality. It's never in the present moment. It escapes reality. Why? Well, if you think about it, where's your mind predominantly? It's either in the past or it's in the future. So you see, your mind will take you to this imaginary world that doesn't exist. When you have a memory of the past, that's a memory. It's not there anymore. Your mind uses that, the ego uses that as reference to build your identity. And if you think about it, many of us, our identities that we were brought up with are one of self-defeating or self-doubting. It's not an empowering identity. So therefore, our ego will chastise us. It'll make us feel low. It'll lose our confidence. And all these things, all these are important to create what we want, right? Because if we don't have the confidence, if we can't raise our vibration, and then we start to believe it, then we put ourselves in this perpetual cycle, right? It goes around and around and around. So if you think about it, yeah, the ego, we have to get it under control. Now, the thing is, many of us, we were taught that, hey, you got to kill the ego. You cannot kill your ego. Your ego is there as a protector. The ego has good qualities, right? It can make you visualize. It can make you desire things, right? So it's good. But the thing you want to understand about your ego is this. Always remember this, all right? My ego is a limited perspective of me. My true self or higher self is an infinite perspective of me. That's my true self. So you always remember, you got to treat your ego like a little kid that doesn't have any experience and it thinks it knows it all. That's how you got to treat your ego, because that's really what it is compared to your higher self. I mean, your ego doesn't have the experience, the knowledge, or the ways to create what you want versus your subconscious or going towards your higher self, right? Because your ego only knows from the past. Everything it builds or tries to control is a reference to what you've experienced in your past. If you've never experienced it, it can't happen. That's according to your ego. So you can see the limitation right there. But the biggest thing about the ego is that voice. It's the constant nagging of telling you you're not worthy. They're looking at you this way. They don't like you. You're not good enough. You can't work. Da 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 da. The ego will continue and it will beat you down, and it'll get to a point where you're not even yourself. You can't sleep. You're depressed. You feel bad. All these things, right, can contribute to not creating what we want. But I have good news. There is a way that you can silence the ego. There's a way that you can get your ego under control. There's a way that you can actually get your ego to stop those nagging thoughts and start to train and condition your ego to give you empowering thoughts. And today I'm going to reveal to you 3 powerful statements that you can use right now, and it will cut your ego down and you'll be able to control it. Now, we have to know how to talk or communicate with our ego. So the first step is the communication language with your ego. You have to have a conversation. You have to speak out aloud to your ego. Remember now, your ego has its own agenda. It thinks it knows it. It thinks it's smarter than you. It thinks it knows everything that will happen. And also your ego's primary senses are about failure and lack. Failure and lack. Doesn't mean your ego hates you. Doesn't mean that it doesn't want you to succeed. It's just doing the best it can based on your experience. So, and many of us, we have big dreams, big goals, and big manifestations. So we're doing something that's never been done before. So according to your mind, it says, whoa, you can't do that. It's not possible. How are we going to do this? And that creates the doubt. So what you want to do is we want to engage your ego. So let me show you something about how your mind works. So your mind cannot do 2 things at the same time. What I mean by that, it cannot antagonize you, right? And then try to make you feel good at the same time. It doesn't do that. It's going to do one or the other. So the key is we have to distract it. If you can distract the message before it gets to a point where you start to cycle out, then you have control. And that's what you're going to do with these 3 statements. So the first statement you want to say, so anytime you find your ego nagging you, here's the first one. Just say this out loud. Just say this. Hey, relax, relax. Immediately, you're going to notice a different vibration. That's right. Your ego will actually start to relax. So why does this work? Well, the ego is your tool. Deep down, it knows who's in charge. Like, remember, it's a kid. It's like a kid. A kid is always acting up, but when their parent says, hey, the kid realizes, oh, that's my mom, that's my dad, let me relax. Same thing with your ego. So when you say, hey, relax, relax, your ego immediately cuts off those negative thoughts or anything. So what you do now, when you tell your ego, hey, relax, relax, you just focus on something that makes you feel a little better. That's the first one. All right. Second powerful statement that you'll say to your ego. If your ego is antagonizing you or, telling you can't, or just showing you what the reasons why it won't work, just say this. Hey, happy, happy, happy thoughts. Just like that. Just say, hey, happy, happy, happy thoughts. What that does now, that's going to generate a subconscious feeling to produce happy. Your brain's going to start to think happy, and your ego now is distracted. When it says happy, happy thoughts, it has to stop whatever it's doing and listen, because it can't do 2 things at the same time. It can't antagonize you and then try to override what you're telling it. It has to focus on one thing. So when it's trying to say you can't do it and you say happy, happy, happy thoughts, it immediately cuts the vibration. Whatever it was doing, it stops because it's now focused on what you're saying. So when you say happy, happy thoughts, there you go. Put something happy in your mind. All right. Second one. Here's a third one. This is the third powerful one here. So when the ego says things again, it's antagonizing you, breaking you down, just say this. Say, hey, everything is under control and is working out perfectly. Now let me show you how this one. I believe this one is the most powerful one, and because what this does is it gives your mind a direction, and it gives your mind hope, and it gives your mind purpose. Remember, your ego is trying to figure things out. When it can't see a way, it's panicking. You get nervous. You start to panic and worry. You get desperate because you can't see a way. But if you say to yourself, hey, relax, everything is working out perfectly, everything is going to be all right, your mind actually starts to believe that. Yeah. Your ego will literally listen and say, oh, maybe he knows something I don't know. Remember, it's a very logical and analytical and thinking mind. So it's open to listen. It's open to hear other stuff. So when you say, hey, relax, everything is going to work out perfectly, or everything is working out perfectly, your mind will actually listen and says, all right, that's all you need. You need that gap right there, because what happens now, the next step you do is when you tell your mind everything's going to work out perfectly, now further direct the mind. Now just say to your ego, listen, we only want positive things. Bring me things that are only going to be in alignment, or things that are in accord with what we want, our goals, our dreams. And your mind will actually start to look at that. Because the thing about the ego is it has one primary function that's hidden deep within it. Deep down, it knows you're the boss. Deep down, it knows it's just a tool. So when you regain control, the mind must react that way. See how it works? That's it. Now you want to start to exercise this every day. Now many of you may be doing this a lot because some of your egos may be very tough. They may be just very strong egos. But if you start to do this every day out loud, you're going to notice a big change. You're going to find more peace. You're going to find more or less worry, because now you're going to direct your mind and tell your mind what you want. When you say, hey, happy, happy thoughts, tell your mind, say, look, you're only going to bring me thoughts that make me feel good. If you're going to bring anything negative, you must stop. Your mind will do it. It'll think twice. It's just so easy. People don't understand this, how it works. Well, you have to understand how it works, because it's how your mind operates. You see, the ego is just literally a tool. It's an assistant for you. But we have been conditioned, or been basically tricked to believe that the tool is the master. So that's where we mess up. We're using the tool as the master. Tool cannot be a master. So when you take control and let the tool know it's a tool, the tool will start to play its role. It will start to act accordingly. And now everything comes from your higher self. Now remember, a keynote about your ego is, always remember, your ego never sees reality, never puts you in actual reality, the present moment. It never puts you in a place where you can get the answers and communicate with your higher self, because it's constantly living in the past and looking for the future. Remember, the past and the future have no actual realities of their own. All their reality is borrowed from where? The present moment. When you think of the future, when do you do it? Now. When you dream of the past or think of the past, when are you doing it? Now. Everything happens now. So your ego takes this present moment and distorts it into past and future, especially future. That's what it does the most, because the future isn't here. When does the future arrive? Now. So that's the way you have to understand how your mind works. Once you grasp this, you will see a big change. And remember, when you can control the ego, what's the biggest part of this? What's the biggest bonus? Resistance is released. You don't have all this resistance. And remember, when we want to create, the key is the less resistance, the more energy we have, the more we attract what we want. So if you can get your ego to be under control, you release a ton of resistance. You'll make your life better, and you'll be on your way to deliberately creating your life by design.